God not also supporting some of these armies, or is Satan just sometimes stabbing him, shooting himself in the foot? Like, crap, I wish I would have won that one, but I lost to myself. Like, I mean, like, or is God getting behind some of these forces to push back against Satan? Is God finding his armies as Satan finds his?
There's no patriotic exemption for sin.
No Latter-day Saint should ever pledge their ultimate allegiance to their government. They should pledge their ultimate allegiance to Christ.
The message of the Book of Mormon is that the wars didn't actually work.
It's not murder if it's self-defense.
And
this seems juvenile to me.
It's not juvenile.
Fortunately, the Book of Mormon has the exact antidote to both of your sides.
Welcome back to Midnight Mormons, ladies and Midnight Strike Through Mormons. I am your host, Cardin Ellis. I'm joined in the studio today with a dream team. We've got Kwaku L, as well as Brad Whitbeck, Jacob Hansen, and Cody the Oracle from an old school podcast called Problem Solver Politics. He is our non-member friend, okay, what are you, Cody? You're half Jewish, half Catholic. Don't go to either.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say I've never practiced any religion. That would be my ethnic background, however.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have my phenotype on me, but if you want, I can get to that.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, he's a super cool guy, friend of the show. We met at the radio station years ago, and oftentimes we bring him in to be a voice of reasons. You guys may occasionally see him on the pod and hear him on the radio because he's just a cool guy with a great head on his shoulders. So anyway, in a previous program, Kwaku tried to make the argument that war is satanic. And I say it's a necessary evil. It's like a gun. The gun itself is not inherently bad, so you don't outlaw guns. It's an inanimate tool that could be used for good or for bad. It's a necessary evil, right? I mean, and then you stared at me like that. Is this just hippie nonsense for clicks or what? Because you were giving flack to Rachel Patterson, who loves living around Fort Bragg because it creates more manly men that are just better individuals than these woke scolds that we got drinking booze and playing video games all day.
What is who is the best soldier and hunter in the Bible?
Nimrod.
Yep.
Okay.
The archetype. This was a trap. This was a trap card.
The archetype of a soldier,
scripturally
speaking, in the Bible is Nimrod.
Or Teancum. I'd say Teancum. He was with that lance. Boom.
Well, we can get into that. We'll get into that. But
because
I'm just
it destroys your theory.
You know, to say that is war a necessary evil, I can't find Jesus saying anything like that. Only the opposite.
Okay,
those who live by the sword die by the sword.
Didn't Jesus say he came to bring a sword?
He came not to bring peace.
So are you one of those guys that says like we shouldn't join the military? What are you, like a J-Dub?
I'm not a J-Dub. I am anti-military, yeah.
But are you anti like kind of like recent American foreign policy, or like all wars forever, like every war that was ever fought was 100% unjust? Because like, yeah, America's foreign policy recently hasn't been super great. There's been a couple wars. When you got the Spanish-American War, where it's like, oh, one of our boats blew up. I guess it was the Spanish. Oh, look, Cuba's part of America now. I mean, like, some of this stuff happens pretty quick and isn't necessarily just and, like, you know, good.
That was the best summary of that war ever.
I'll put it to you this way. Do you guys remember that news story of the stripper? She was a stripper, but also she was a prostitute.
I love it already. And please tell me it happened in Florida.
No, it happened in New York. She was selling drugs. She got into a fight with this guy who was trying to buy a prostitute, didn't have money, so he attempted to R-word her, and she stabbed him in the neck. Now, if I have to pick a side there, I would actually pick the side of the stripper prostitute who's selling drugs.
Because she was defending herself.
Yes.
Okay.
However, I do not advocate any of the things that they were doing to lead up to that moment.
It might strike some of our viewers as harsh.
That's a lot different though than like war. It's like just self-defense. I mean, like wars are fought. There's like weird defensive wars where you invade a country so they can't invade you, and we're stuff like that.
There's almost no modern wars that are self-defensing after World War II.
But that's what I'm saying though. It's like there's philosophically being against all war in general ever and think it's a failure of men, which it probably is. But there's also like criticizing U.S. foreign policy, which has been really bad the past 100 years.
I'll say scripturally, I'm against all wars ever, and politically, I'm against most.
But you can't defend that.
Well, yes, I can. Can I get to the scriptures? Well, I got them. I got them on hand.
But outside of scripture, I mean, I'm not big religious, but isn't a big part, especially of Christianity, this idea that like men is fallible. Like we make mistakes, we get in these dumb conflicts, we do these things we shouldn't. So they use, like faith and stuff to kind of try to pull back and like come back from that. But sometimes like stuff kind of goes off the rails, and suddenly you're invading a country. But it's like inside of those wars,
there's a lot of things that goes off the rails. Mostly the bombs.
Yeah.
But I believe what you may be describing. What
This
we would call
seems
in our
juvenile
church,
to me.
It's not
Kwaku.
juvenile.
Like,
it's not juvenile. What we describe in our church is what is it? Hear a little, sin a little. What's the
dig
one
a pit
scripture?
for thy neighbor.
Yeah.
Eat,
so
drink, and be merry. For tomorrow
we got to
die.
go back to the source here. Okay. So what do we know? We know that in Mormon belief, Satan has power over the militaries and the nations. In fact, he uses his priesthood to buy up.
He says he can buy up armies. It doesn't mean all armies are bad. Just like I can buy up guns.
You're not letting me finish because you know I'm about to steal in my point.
Real estate. I can buy up ranches.
Whenever Cardin really starts swinging his arms around, he's trying to distract from my home run I'm about to hit. Okay, so in the New Testament, what happens? Satan brings Jesus to the mount, and he shows him all the kingdoms of the world, and he says, if you bow down and worship me, all these nations will be yours. Now, why does Satan have the authority to give every country to Jesus?
Because he knows how to swindle people out of money, and you can buy anything in this world with money.
or he didn't, right? Like he could. Just
He's
be
a
lying.
liar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like he could just be like, "Hey, man, I'll give you, I'll give you the moon. I'll put your name on it if you."
I love that Satan just became played by what's his name? George Bailey?
George Bailey. Come on down, I'll pull it out of the moon.
I'm Satan, see? Yeah.
Okay, I apparently you guys are walking into each one. I'm just gonna make sure I have my scriptures.
I don't know.
written down here.
Cody seemed to have outdone that one pretty well. I hadn't have thought, what if he was just lying?
Let me
Yeah, no, that's
can
what
I,
I've
Can I
always thought.
disarm Kwaku before he even launches into his home run by just saying, yeah, we all agree war is less than the ideal. We don't want war.
Yeah.
The question is if war can be justified.
Never.
And I believe that's
No,
totally
we
incorrect.
just did Come Follow Me, where he literally said, if your brother offend thee, first go to him personally. You may preserve your relationship and preserve a brother. If he won't listen to you, then take 2 or 3 witnesses with you and confront him again and do it lovingly. And if that doesn't work, go to the church. And then if that doesn't work, let him be a heathen and a publican to you. I'm sure it's easy to retreat and say, oh, nobody should ever be excommunicated. Nobody should ever be ostracized. And we're not saying everybody should be right off the bat. I think most people have not gone through the steps of first going personally, second going with 2 or 3 witnesses, third going with the church, and then fourth going to make them heathen and verboten and publicans and excommunicated and so on and so forth. It seems juvenile to me just to say I just don't believe in excommunication, that it ever works, because who is the king of cancel culture? Freaking Satan.
You're going into tangents I haven't even touched. Okay, let me say. My phone just froze, so I'm trying to wait to get to the scriptures, but it's literally frozen.
Real
again,
quick,
so
let me make one
But
quick...
I just want to say, before we talk about this, are you talking about the actual wars that have happened? Or are you talking about an idealized version of war that they give you in school as you're
And
growing
that
up?
is where I might agree with Kwaku. That I think what you're saying in theory is correct, but kind of what Cody was saying earlier, the foreign policy that we have been seeing more recently does not reflect that. And so the arguments that you're making that are trying to say, hey, there are times where war is justified, end up getting used to justify the kinds of wars that we're
Look,
seeing.
I support our troops.
Yeah.
There it is.
So,
So no, can war, why don't we be precise in our language here? If you're saying that war is satanic, that's a very broad statement. Because war is not always satanic. Sometimes war can be justified.
The Holy War, the Crusades, entirely justified.
Hey.
Well, also largely political. It seems
political.
to come back in time to largely political.
I'm coming around
gripes.
on the Crusades. I've seen some very compelling Catholic YouTube videos the past week.
Garden,
about the Just War Clause.
Well, no, even the Catholics largely understand that the Crusades were largely political, right? They're largely the idea that the kind of Christian power structures were failing in Western Europe, and they were trying to find a way to literally rally the troops. I mean, that was what was going on there.
Daniel 8:25. He, Satan, will cause deceit to prosper, and he will consider himself superior. When they feel secure, he will destroy many and take his stand against the Prince of Princes. Yet he will be destroyed, but not by human power. What does that sound like to you?
Well, I guess I have a question though, kind of on these lines. Does that mean every war Satan's won? Evil is just on this never-ending charge, or is God present in these wars as well? Does he show up and kind of try to guide him and steer him in ways? Maybe, like the fact that people are killing each other, it's not so great. But I mean, it does seem like in some ways we've gotten a couple lucky breaks when it comes to who could have won wars and what could have happened.
But does anyone really win a war?
I mean, you do have a Jewish background, right? So there's kind of a war that you're kind of appreciative that we won.
Treaties are signed and they end eventually, generally speaking, or something happens that, the city's given. Like at some point there's a stop. And when it stops, somebody's politically gained an advantage.
So it sounds like as long as there is a
answer
material
his
reward.
question.
I am.
Okay.
Sounds like you're saying if there's a material reward at the end, that means some wars are justified.
No, I'm saying the amount of wars waged, like an overt, just like this is a war waged largely for evil or 100% selfish means, a lot of those stall and fail. And I would say it's kind of interesting that time and time again, people somehow found a way to raise massive armies, perform like a lot of, I would say do a lot of awful things in the name of it, tried to gather large troops to get large swaths of land under their control for a large period of time, subjugate millions, and they just seem to fail time and time again. There's been some that have more success than others.
Yeah, but as they're doing that, there's a carnage of blood and destruction.
Well, no, I want you to answer his question too, though. Cody brought up a really good question. He said, well, do you think then that every time there's a war, it's just Satan winning? Or do you think God ever just shows up and is present in this? Because it seems like there has been divine intervention in wars. For example, that fog that preserved the Continental Army and made it so that George Washington could escape from Manhattan. There is no other way of seeing that than divine intervention that led to the birthplace of the modern gospel and the restoration of the church. I mean, there's a direct correlation. Joseph Smith was born only like 20 years after the Revolution. You know what I'm saying? And had the revolution failed, we wouldn't have the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It would not be the religious
I don't know if I agree
traditions
with that. I think God would have restored his church no matter what.
Or maybe, I don't think through what means? Perhaps those were the means. During the war, there was an opportunity. That was the means. He was able to do it then.
God is control of time. He's got plan A through Z.
But then why does anything bad happen to anyone?
Exactly. You're going too far with
No,
this.
I'm not. I'm not because I'm not talking. I have to actually answer. Okay, let's actually lay down the groundwork here. Okay. So here's what I'm saying. Satan offers Jesus all the nations of the world. The Bible and the New Testament specifically call him the God of this world and the ruler of this world multiple times. To be the God of a world and the ruler of a world sounds like to me you're in control of the world, which is why he's called the God of this world. Azael, the fallen angel, teaches mankind the art of war. Doctrine and Covenants tells us to renounce war and seek peace. Doctrine and Covenants section 87 talks about how war is the means that Satan will use up until the last day to prevent the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Can I agree with Kwaku about something? Okay. I want to agree with Kwaku about something. Yes, I do believe that God is the God of this world is Satan, and that the government. The thing is that the government uses violence, coercion to basically get its way. The nature of the world is you have a whole bunch of people here and you have limited resources, limited land. And the thing is that people are going to compete and fight over who gets control of what. There are people in this world who, if they could right now, would take away your liberty to live the way that you want, would take the land from you, and that would make you live a certain way. But the reason, and the thing is they could do that if there weren't people there to basically say, no, you can't do that. And so the nations of the world have militaries that, through violent force, preserve their borders and sovereignty.
We're doing a great job.
Which means
you're here free.
But Kwaku has a really good point because it's really convenient when that just so happens to be in places that have oil, which is a lot of the recent stuff. Now, I'm going to end this whole discussion because, fortunately, the Book of Mormon has the exact antidote to both of your sides.
Oh.
I would invite you all to take a look at Alma chapter 43, verses 46 and 47. Turns out, this has come up before. And here it is. Alma 43, verses 46 and 47. By the way, 45 has some cool stuff about the Nephites being inspired by a better
skip
cause.
45.
It's useful, but 46. And they were doing that which they felt was the duty which they owed to their God, for the Lord had said unto them, and also unto their fathers, that inasmuch as ye are not guilty of the first offense, neither the second, ye shall not suffer yourselves to be slain by the hands of your enemies. And again, the Lord has said that ye shall defend your families even unto bloodshed. Therefore, for this cause, were the Nephites contending with the Lamanites to defend themselves and their families and their lands, their country and their rights and their religion. So, you're technically both right. There are times when it is justified,
But let's yes,
but it
Brad.
must
I
be
was just saying the
defensive.
same thing that you were just saying. Of course, like wars of aggression, we're all against that.
And I brought up Matthew 18 where I said,
Okay.
first go with one to him personally, second with 2 or 3 witnesses, third with the church. And if that doesn't work, then he is like a heathen and a publican. So that's the exact same formula.
That's what I'm saying. You're both right.
No,
Yeah.
so let's take this further then. Should we support the military?
Yes, if they're engaged predominantly in that country, I believe that there is a little bit of a scale.
The U.S.
here.
military.
Back to Cody's question. Do you have a problem with modern U.S. foreign policy, which I do believe is under indictment? Or do you just have a problem with war philosophically? And you said, I have a problem with all wars all the time.
No,
and if
I
that's
said-
the case...
I have the right
No,
rule for
no,
this.
what did I say? I said scripturally I'm against all wars because I think Jesus wants us to find peace, but politically I'm against most wars.
But I
That's
think
what
here,
said.
I
Jesus
have the
wants us
right
to
rule for
find
this,
a peace,
guys.
but if in finding peace you have to maybe
So
defend
David
yourself
shouldn't have...
until they stop attacking you, that's
Yeah.
finding peace
Okay.
in a way.
So
That's
King
last
David,
resort.
Well, yeah, but
David,
that- is that
hold
not
on, hold
also
on.
a war
So
zone?
King
Stop.
David,
I have
no,
the
no,
right.
King David, no, I want to know Kwaku's answer here. King David is standing in front of the Philistine army. They're going to destroy the Jews, and he grabs a rock and a sling. What should he have done? Should he have not gone up
Standing in
against
front of the
Goliath?
Philistine what?
Army. Yeah, I get it. That's a cute play on words. But really, you're suggesting that
No,
King
no,
David
no.
should not have fought Goliath.
You're not understanding what I'm saying. You're saying am I against one military? I'm against war.
Yeah,
the
but
Philistines should not be.
But that's like saying you're against anger or I'm against conflict. I mean, like
No, no, no.
everyone is against
That's a
it.
good
Nobody
point.
wants
The
it, but it
idea
happens.
of the Philistines creating an army inherently violates this exact thing that Jesus is
Okay,
telling
a
us
bunch
to
of
do.
people.
But
come-
they
a bunch of-
came, and we can't stop it because evil exists. I said war is a necessary evil, and it has to be dealt with. Just like we've got 400 million guns in the United States of America now.
Okay, let's
I'd
do-
love to
let's-
say
let's
nobody
do
should have violence.
Let's
There
do a
should be
modern
no-
example of this.
Well, no, I want you to
If
answer
you
the question
don't have
first.
a military, then you don't have the
I want-
deterring
No, you
force to
didn't
stop
answer
people
my
I
from
want
question.
to give a modern
You
example
didn't-
of this exact thing
then just
because
answer
we
my
are-
question.
We
What
don't have
should
the
Dave
luxury
have
of
done?
having all of the context of every ancient Old Testament war. We don't.
It's a well-documented case, one of the most beloved not parables, but stories of the Bible.
Who is the founder of Philistine?
David and Goliath.
Who is the Philistine founder?
Okay, you'd have to believe it was the Nephilim.
Okay, which one?
Okay, no, but just tell me, what should he do then?
No,
The Philistines are coming to invade. They've
You're
stated a
hearing me,
desire
but you're
to
not
kill
listening.
the Jews.
You're hearing me, but you're not listening. This is what I'm saying. If
Okay.
Wars are complicated because they are usually sparked by whatever drama is happening between these two different governments. But in the Bible, we don't have the luxury of getting into the nitty-gritty of it like we do with these modern wars. So I say let's go to a modern example and let's look at the war that's been going on that we've experienced in our lives, okay? What happened for those planes to go into those buildings? What led up to that? Because it wasn't just we were living our nice, fine, dandy lives and they decided, oh, let's cause some trouble and take down the U.S. That's not what happened.
Support
There was
of
a
Israel,
lot
I
leading
think,
up
was
to
a
it.
huge part of it. Our support of Israel in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Anything to do with Tim Osman, the hiring of Tim Osman to the CIA, anything to do with that, anything to do with the Project for a New American Century, that was drafted 4 years before. So we are not being honest if we pretend as if it's just a normal land, everyone's doing their thing, we're all peaceful, and then someone else comes in and decides, no, we're gonna F these guys over. That's not how it's happened recently.
But there's always a chain of events that goes back that you can say, well, this happened and that happened. The thing is
And it brings
who was
up-
the one that first went in there and flew planes into buildings, killing thousands upon thousands of people?
Us?
Well, but
Not.
I mean, we did untold horrors to them before they did to us, which is why I'm happy Brad brought up Alma 43. If you're not guilty of the first offense or the second offense, but guess what?
So you're
We're
saying that
guilty
the
of both.
You're saying that the United States is ultimately that it was Osama bin Laden was acting in defense?
That's not what I'm saying.
Who trained Osama bin Laden, though?
It sounds like you're
to fight the Russians.
Oh, hold on,
and
though.
the
It sounds
commies.
like-
and
And how did that turn out?
I'm all about fighting commies, just so you guys know.
So were we guilty of the first and second offense? Arguably so. Which is why
No,
when
we could go back in time and we could say that the commies were guilty of the first offense when they started to invade the Taliban or invade Afghanistan and take over. And we went to defend the Afghani people.
So you're saying this all started with the commies?
We could go back even further. We could go back to Karl Marx. I mean, you can roll back the chain
And who
forever.
inspired him?
And the person, and his dad that beat him, and then the dad that beat the dad of Karl Marx, and then
The question is who actually engaged in, when do you stop the cycle of violence?
Here, I actually have a solid rule for this on which armies can be considered righteous and which cannot. It's who decorates their uniforms with skulls. That's when you start looking around and thinking,
That's a
are
good
we the
point.
baddies? Oh dear.
So this
Perhaps we're in the wrong.
So this goes back to the initial question. If we can't even find a clear source as to how these wars began, why should I support the military? And then support and believe that government narrative that tells us to
No.
support these troops
I look at
when
the-
I don't even know
I
why
look
they're
at-
there.
I look at the people in the situation who are dying. Are they innocent? I will defend those people. People are punished for what they did. If Osama bin Laden is killing a bunch of people in a bunch of buildings in New York that have nothing to do, they're just American citizens, and he's murdering these innocent people, I'm going to go and find this guy and anyone who supports him, and we're going to go and take him down.
Okay, I'm gonna. I want you to
but
hold that
quick,
thought real
like
quick.
Cody brought up a really good point. He said,
Wait,
"Well, do you
I
have a
to-
problem? Do you
I
have a
to
problem?"
respond to this point because it's very important because we're getting into the reality of it. So you brought this example of the planes and we're not even going to go to the conspiracy route. We're just going to stick with the 2,977 Americans died in 9/11. Okay, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
1.6 million Iraqis, Afghanis, and Pakistanis died as a result of our war. So
As
that's
a result of the war of retaliation against the Taliban, they
That's
should have
336
you know what
9/11s.
those people should have done? They should have turned over Osama bin Laden real quick because and how much of that
All
was
of
the
them?
result? Hold on, yes, how much of that was the result of actual Americans targeting innocent civilians
a
intentionally?
lot.
Nah.
Well, wait, but hold on.
Oh no, of
but
course.
wait,
I mean, this
And
is
if
what,
that does
Hold on,
happen,
let
then the
Cody
targeting
speak.
of those civilians was wrong. I can admit that. Any of the killing of the innocents is wrong, but it's not wrong to go after the people that actually killed.
1.6 million.
But wait, hold on. This has nothing to do with the original point. Like, no offense, but it sounds like your point has no meaning. Wars happen. Maybe God finds his armies to fight Satan's, but it's like, what does it mean war is satanic? Like, people shouldn't kill each other. There's 10 commandments. People don't follow them, man. Like, it doesn't mean anything to say war.
no.
Nobody wants war. Nobody wants mass death.
That's not
it
true.
Isn't good.
People do want war.
Okay, but
And
I would
who
say,
inspires them?
I would say
Yes.
largely, though, on like most people, especially, it's kind of weird the people that don't want to invade and go to war seem to be the ones that went out and reproduce and kind of make larger cultures. Like, it just seems like you're saying war is bad because I don't like America's government, which I agree, American foreign policy is bad, but like, and war isn't good, but it's just like, what does it mean to say war is satanic? That means nothing, man.
Because Satan is inspiring all of these wars.
So Kwaku, I want to bring this back to the scriptures real quick. Look at the people of King Limhi, right? When they have the Lamanites surrounding them, they're coming in to attack their people. It was King Noah who did not keep up their armed forces in a way that they could defend their people, who was in failure. They actually sent their people out and they kept on attacking the Lamanites and rejoicing in their victory to the point that they ended up messing up and leaving themselves open for attack. You see an example in there that you should have an army, you should have a military and use it for defensive purposes. You have throughout the Book of Mormon, even in the war chapters, you see many times where the Lord calls his people. Even in 3rd Nephi, you have Gidgiddoni, who's a prophet general, who is leading the armies of the people to defend them. So there is righteous use for armies that should be used well. Just like you said, you'll buy up armies and navies. That kind of implies there will be armies to be bought, which means they're not all sold to Satan, right? It's the same argument you see with Jesus saying, beware of false prophets. It doesn't mean every prophet is false. It means you have to look for the good ones.
No, that's a fair point. So, but to bring it away from the theoreticals though, into the practicality of right now. So the first question was, how is war satanic? We went into the scriptures. Satan's okay. The second question was,
I don't
should
think
we
it's the
support
war.
the military?
It's the deceiving people to go to war under false pretenses, which if you want to say that American foreign policy has deceived people into going into unnecessary wars, yes, just like
yes, yeah, and I agree.
That's different. That's
is
different
the
than
murder of
saying,
1.6 million people satanic?
So yes. And let me say this.
No,
in
no,
addition, this might answer part of the question.
I don't
Okay.
consider it any
And then it will respond to
murder.
Jacob because
Well,
he
how
made
many-
a. He
how
made a
many-
And we only
My
got 2
eye
minutes.
roll.
We got 2
Okay.
minutes
How many
here.
million
So,
people died in World
this-
War One? It's insane. They were all murdered by Satan. I mean, like, what?
Yes.
So then why did the war end and now they're living peacefully in Western Europe? Satan lost, I guess. Or what did Satans do? Like, all right, I need this amount of bodies, got him. Peace. You guys can chill now. Like,
Well, no,
I don't get it.
The demon, to quote Orson Pratt, the demon of war will move his headquarters to different parts of the world. That's to quote Orson Pratt in a continuation.
Okay,
of
but
That's
DC.
just to say that war is bad. Yeah, we agree. Innocent people die in war.
But we don't. Humankind does not actually believe war is bad. Humankind
do.
is totally fine with war. We give it lip service. What was that? Sorry,
Kwaku, I think
you
the-
make your point, and then I'll continue.
Yeah, the place where I think we can find some agreement here is I think we're messing up a definition when you're saying, should we support the military, right? Because we have a reaction on this side of the room of like, yeah, we should support the military. And you're like, no, all armies are bad. I think what we're actually saying is the people who are in the military are there generally to defend their people. There are some bad people who are in there because they're like, oh, yeah, I want to go kill some people. That's bad, and that's not the right reason to go into the military. The people who are making the decisions for that military, I think, are the people who are more deserving of criticism, right? Not the soldiers themselves.
But when you put yourself in a position to only follow orders of an organization that does have ill intent, you are still guilty. There's
No Latter-day Saint should ever pledge their ultimate allegiance to their government. They should pledge their ultimate allegiance to Christ. Because
agree.
if the government is going to make them do something that's wrong, they should not do that thing. And most people would agree. Now,
No,
but
so
it's
that's
funny.
when I
There's
say-
only two people in Scripture that the Scripture explicitly tells us to be like. I might be wrong, but one of them was Jesus Christ. And obviously that's the key one. I'm not trying to take away from Jesus. That's who we want to be like.
He was
But
a special
Jesus-
operator.
he's
But
not-
remember,
give us
the
the
other
Jesus
one
butt,
is
okay?
the other one was Captain Moroni. It says, if all men ever were like unto him, and the sons of Mosiah, which includes Ammon the arm chopper, that the powers of hell would be shaken. So it's funny that we are told as men in the gospel, yes, to be like Jesus Christ, but I would imagine the reason the scriptures say that Moroni is someone to emulate and the sons of Mosiah is because they actually were Christ-like. And the problem is we've morphed Christ into this radical pacifist. He was a pacifist, but not a radical extremist pacifist who says, hey, lay down and let people just kick you around.
I would say the New Testament is about 70-30 prescriptive and then descriptive, whereas the Book of Mormon is probably about 60% descriptive and 40% prescriptive. I'm very sure what you're talking is descriptive and not prescriptive, meaning it's not
a
necessarily...
nice opinion you got there.
Well, I mean, Hugh Nibley agrees, right? I mean, Hugh Nibley has... I would go read... He wrote an extensive essay on war in the Book of Mormon, and he came to the same conclusion I came to, that ultimately the message of the Book of Mormon is that the wars didn't actually work.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And
War
they were-
doesn't work,
and in the-
ultimately.
and in the
it is not,
scriptures-
violence is not the way to get change.
Well, in the scriptures in the Book of Mormon, it's
Ultimately.
written with a certain hubris of how they're feeling at that exact time. So we don't have that luxury of the New Testament because it went through so many hands. But the Book of Mormon, that's the hands of the prophets, and it's one direct translation. So we can
it's
see...
the hand of Mormon primarily.
But why did their wars fail? Is because they ceased to follow the Lord's law of war, as outlined in Alma 43.
And war generally creates a large amount of, let's say, massive pride in the people. It creates a... We saw how... what is that country singer,
War-
Toby Keith? We saw all that post-war
There's a point here. There's a
jubilance.
cycle of violence that war creates. That's one of the dangers of war. That's why I think Abraham Lincoln, post Civil War, his with
forgiving
malice
the South
forgiving the
was
South,
crazy.
that's
yeah.
insane. And the thing is that because he was assassinated and then the radical Republicans took over, they had a very different policy. They're like, we're gonna punish the South, and much of the conflict we see today in our country is a result of that legacy. And then World War II happened, and Hitler, because the Allied powers did not go the Lincoln route, they said, let's screw the German people over, let's rub their faces in it. Then you go the other route. Look at what we did to the Japanese with Douglas MacArthur, where he went in there and they helped to rebuild their country. And then what happened?
Nintendo. Pokemon.
Exactly.
It was awesome.
No, I don't disagree with any of that. But
Okay,
what I'm
we
saying
gotta
is
wrap it up, bro.
What is that mass war created a mass pride and a mass acceptance of murder.
And freedom for our friend here.
It's not murder if it's self-defense.
And that's what I think the key here is.
Okay, I will give World War II. I'll take that off the board because I already said that World War II is an exception. But,
which means.
But how could there be an exception? Is that how the Bible works? Like
Well,
it's
the
evil except for that one. That one was cool.
well, no, the Nazis were totally inspired by Satan.
Yeah, but-
That war,
okay.
that war, yes, that war was
Okay,
satanic.
But the
because
fact that you're agreeing that World War II is okay means you agree with this
well,
side here.
rather,
I think the Taliban was inspired by
the
Satan.
freeing of 6 million to 9 million people from a mass death sentence is the noble thing to do. The death sentence created by the demon of war is satanic.
But then, so
Yes.
it's like, would you agree then? Like you said, I think earlier you said all armies are satanic. Is that what you said? But then,
Ultimately,
is God not also supporting some of these armies, or is Satan just sometimes stabbing him, shooting himself in the foot? Like, crap! I wish I would have won that one, but I lost to myself. Like, I mean, like, or is God getting behind some of these forces to push back
fair-
against Satan? Is God finding his armies as Satan finds his?
to play
This guy.
play back on Kwaku's side with this.
no, I want to hear that answer though.
I'm gonna answer that directly.
Okay.
With actually in the Book of Mormon, who wins in the Book of Ether? Shiz and Coriantumr are both totally inspired by Satan along the way. And Satan wins when we all destroy each other. So there are situations and cases where that can happen, and that is Satan's goal.
Okay.
I don't think that it's always the case, but there are situations where that is.
Okay, so this is the last question, then we got to wrap it up because we got a hard out coming here, okay? I want you to answer Cody's question. When does Satan just say like, oh, I shot myself in the foot that time because I didn't win because the U.S. Army stopped the big evil man with the bad mustache and the Russian army stopped the big evil man with the mustache? Did Satan just mess up that time?
Well,
or is there actually a good army that can do good things?
there can be good people, but there are no good armies. The same military that freed our Jewish friends is the same one that put Agent Orange in Japan and dropped 2 atomic bombs and created untold
The problem is you're
death
thinking
and horror.
collectively. The individuals made certain decisions, and those individuals were leaders of
And
those
the group
groups.
think of that military was totally different.
Well,
It was
were the
idiots-
prophets
Well,
speaking
but those
collectively
are
as
also
well?
government decisions. Like, I mean, something that I think
Yeah, I know, I agree.
But
It's
just
all
quickly,
wrong.
Something that was interesting I saw is the British military did a study, and they said the guys who get like their highest medal of courage or bravery, they're trying to figure out like why, like what motivated this guy to kill 50 Germans with his bare hands, right? Like why did he do that? And they found that largely they all kind of had not like 100%, but enough where it was weird. A lot of them were elder siblings, didn't have like multiple parents around, and in almost all these situations, these men that were going on these just war paths. I mean, like you hear the stories where they're like beating guys with grenades and throwing them at them. Every single one of those, or not everyone, but a large percentage were defensive. Almost every single one of those guys said, I saw my men in trouble, and so I had to act. Something possessed me, and I jumped in there, and I was ripping dudes' arms off with my bare hands. I don't know how I did it. But it's almost like, roughly speaking, a lot of the times it's in defense of others. It could be during an attack, you see your men pinned down, and guys just go ballistic. But they found it's hard to find men. There's only like 1% of people that are like actual psychopaths. It's hard to find people that are just going to go out there blood rage murder machines. Most of them are going to be kind of timid until something provokes them. And the thing that provokes men more than anything is to protect their people, to protect others.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like a very like satanic thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
again, but you're talking about the person. You're not talking about the collective group that's
Yeah, but the group
following
is
orders.
a summation of persons who feel the
that's
same
what
way.
an army's soldiers put together.
Or is it a group following the orders
Again, I
of
think,
a council?
I think, honestly, I will not even concede. I will agree with you on the point that a lot of governments behave in ways that are atrocious to the point where you would say it's almost like Satan's making decisions for them. But I wouldn't say that like the concept of amassing men to defend others is a bad concept. Like that's a solid concept. Governments typically, I would agree with you,
It's
make
also-
bad decisions.
But how many times?
It's the role of men
But how
completely.
many times though in this podcast did I say I'm talking about the literal wars here and not just the concepts?
Well,
So I've said it like 9
but
times.
it always comes back to though. You keep getting back to like, oh, American did this and the government's. What I'm saying
Well, I was
is,
trying to get into the reality of the war we experienced,
but-
so we could actually have
no, I
a modern case study as to how these scriptures can apply.
Okay, but
we
I
haven't
also,
really
I
done
also
that.
think your obsession with the modern literalism is affecting your interpretation of scripture and all wars.
Well, I mean,
the
you wanted me to
at-large.
give an exhaustive commentary on
Yeah.
David and the Philistines,
well, no,
but you
but
don't
I-
want to give one on right now.
No,
That's
I already
the
said,
issue.
no, I've said right now, I think there's a fair argument that the U.S. has led people under false pretenses to go to war and cost us lots of blood and treasure.
And is that
is
satanic?
wrong. Yeah, which inherently would be inspired of God,
So
which is
is
satanic.
engaging in those fights, in the murdering of those innocent people, is that a satanic
if you were
thing
to
do?
enroll in the military, having known it was false pretenses, just for some strange bloodlust,
But
I
is the
guess.
law of God not written on our
that-
hearts like the scriptures say? The minute you go out there
yes,
with
but
the
men
gun,
men can be deceived.
well,
Men can be deceived.
that's true. But there's no patriotic exemption
And-
for sin in heaven.
Okay,
And-
well,
it doesn't
and so
exist there.
This, I think, might help with it, Cardin. I think one of the things
Okay,
that
take us home, Brad, because we got to go.
it sounds like Kwaku is indicting anybody who chooses to join the military. Is that what you're aiming to do?
No, I am saying we are not being honest with our scripture when the Holy Spirit speaks to all men. We have the law of God written in our hearts. So we have a conscience. We know what's what. And so the minute you put on that uniform and you go into that battlefield, I'm not saying you're guilty. But when you start to engage in these things that even in that moment God has told you not to do, you are then a part of the problem. And we cannot and we have a mass acceptance of war because we have decided that those boots on the grounds engaging in these things are not guilty. Oh, it's just the unnamed nebulous people at the top. No, when you are involved, because I think every single Nazi that participated and followed what Adolf told them to was wrong. They should not have done it. It doesn't matter if it was just service. They were just following their orders. It was wrong for them to do. And these same soldiers who were maybe went in just to protect their country and believed the lie, some of them ended up committing these atrocities at Abu Ghraib and these things like that. It creates a level of darkness that has a ripple effect that is the way the world is today. And this is why Jesus doesn't want us to engage in these things, because there is no clean war where your hands are clean and they're dirty and they're clean again. It infects every single thing, which is why I say war is satanic.
Okay. Well, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Where do we go wrong? Where do we not robustly defend ourselves enough? Please let us know. This is Midnight Strike Through Mormons. We'll see you guys in the next program. Hey guys, this is Cardin Ellis. I'm the creator of Midnight Mormons. Thank you so much for watching this video. We know in an attention economy, you could be spending your time elsewhere, but you chose to spend it here with us. For that, we are grateful. Before you go to the next video, please make sure that you hit the like button. It tells the algorithms that you like our content and it will hopefully recommend more content in the future. Also, if you can, subscribe to our channel. It's a great way to be alerted of more content we make. And if you press that bell icon next to the subscribe button, you'll be alerted on every video we make. We put a lot of hard work into these and we want you to see all of our videos, so please subscribe. Also, if you would like to contribute, if you're feeling generous, please consider a contribution to the channel through Venmo. We also have contributions that you can give us through PayPal. There will be links in the description of this video to both of those platforms. If you're a giving person that prefers working through Amazon, we also have an Amazon wish list. Much of the equipment that you see in our studio is purchased through Amazon, and we're grateful if you could contribute that way. Also, somewhere around like here, I'd say, and somewhere around like right here is going to be a recommendation for more of our content that you might like. So please click on another video and we'll see you there. Either way, we're glad to have you here. Thanks for hanging out with us. This is Midnight Strike Through Mormons. We will see you in the next video.